I'm Dan Wasson from Wasson Nursery, and I'm a hardscaper.
All right, Dan, let's get started here to get to learn a little bit more about yourself, how you got started in the industry. Can you give our audience a little bit of a background about yourself and how you got to where you are right now?
So we started back in, my dad started the company in 1977. And, it started off as just, landscape and a little bit of growing, some shrubs and smaller trees. And it slowly morphed into, design, build, landscape. And eventually like a snowball, things just got more and more. And you add different things. You add patios and we started doing patios, back in the 80s. I was still a little guy then, and I wasn't on a crew or anything. My dad did most of that, and they were just real simple patios. Back in the 80s, it was just simple squares. There were no pools or fire pits. It was very simple. And that was our first stab at hardscaping. It was very minimal. We were still more about the landscape than we are now. It's probably gone the other way now. So that was kind of our first stab at it. But we've been doing it since the 80s.
What made you kind of pursue hardscaping more when you made that adjustment, when you guys made your adjustment in the industry?
That's a really good question, and that's a tough one too. I will tell you that I would say in the last 5 years, we've really made the adjustments to hardscape and patios. We've done them for a long time, of course, but they were never a huge focus. You know what I'm saying? Like, up until recently, they're now an extension of the home. Okay. You've got companies like Techo Block and Unilock and all these different brick companies that they've upped their technology and their game on their pavers. So you can deliver intricate patterns and just really contemporary pieces of it's almost artwork is what I tell people. That's the real transition started, probably 5 or 6 years ago into being able to produce these works of art for people. And I think, patios, I've said this before, I think in an Instagram post, but patios aren't just patios anymore. They're the fire pit, they're the seating, they're the bubbling rock, the outdoor kitchen. These are extensions of people's houses. They're a room in a way. And, they want all those bells and whistles. So, and I'm probably getting off on a tangent here, but that is, the last 5 or 6 years has really been huge in us in transitioning, from doing, a little bit of patios to patios being the main driver behind our design build.
And is that something that you've seen change in the industry since you first started? Whether, going back to a while, like when you were just getting into the industry, and from when you guys started doing hardscapes until now, is that the biggest change you've seen in terms of the way people treat their outdoors? And did that help you kind of adjust your business in the industry to meet the needs of your customer that wanted that?
Oh yeah, we've totally adjusted. We've totally adjusted how we market ourselves. We've adjusted how we display things. We are getting we get tons of referrals and calls of people who want outdoor living. They're not calling for, hey, I want my boxwood hedge trimmed as my or for maintenance. They're calling for major work, major construction, hardscape work. And a little more background about me. I started off on the crew. Okay. My dad I think I was like 14 or 15. My dad said, hey, guess what? You're going on the crew. And I remember to this day, I remember, I've been on the crew, I've planted trees, we've done patios, I've got to work in it, and I loved it. And I remember, when I was doing all that, the stonework was a minimal piece, and it wasn't as glitzy as it is now. And that's been the biggest change, is from now until then, is that we're transitioning to more of a hardscape company and less of a landscape company. We still do a lot of landscape, but we used to have a bunch of crews that they were 90% landscape and 10% hardscape. And now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 hardscape crews that's all they do. They go from one job to the next, and then the landscape crew comes in behind them. And all of our product, most of our product that we're ordering is based around the hardscape. You get the grill, the granite tops, the hardscape lights. It's in a good way infected a good chunk of our business of what we're doing.
You guys still own the nursery, so you have a retail space, and we mentioned this just before this interview, but is this space meant to do more than just bring in revenue for your business?
Absolutely. It's an extension of what we do. And if you would, we have a location in Fishers, Indiana, and if you go to that location, we have an area we call Central Park, where it's got different hardscape designs. It's got an outdoor kitchen. It's got pergolas. It's got pavilions. And that's a really easy way. And it's not like you're going to go buy a car. I don't have a salesman there saying, "Oh, what color patio would you like today?" You could just walk it. And we get a lot of referrals, and part of the referrals we get are people who are in the garden center that say, "You know what? That looks really cool. Look, they've built that here. They can build it at our house." That is huge, especially in the Fishers market. It's a bigger market for us. And, that's a good way that we get leads, is they're in there, they're buying a geranium, or they're buying a fern, or they're getting a load of mulch, and they see that, and it starts to thinking, and the other way we get leads, if I'll jump to that real quick, is we get a lot of leads from word of mouth. I would say word of mouth and the garden centers are our two biggest areas. But that you're absolutely right in that question. The garden center, it looks good. I mean, and retail is a hard business. It's not a business for everyone. It's not you're not hitting the lottery. You do a retail business. It's tough, especially during COVID, what we're dealing with now. It's I've got good people there that are doing a great job, and it's a tough business. So we're able to capture some leads off of that retail, which is a bonus.
Continuing with talking about how the industry has changed, how the customer has changed more towards utilizing their outdoor space. In your opinion, what do you attribute that shift to? What have you seen in your time in the industry, besides that shift that they see their outdoor as an extension of their living space? In your opinion, what's caused that?
I think, man, that's a good question. I would say the first thing on that is there's so much more we can offer. That's the first thing is it's not just, hey, let me put this little 10 by 10 square patio out here now. It's all right. You want a grill, you want a smoker. Oh, guess what? We'll do a granite top on that and a pizza oven, and then we'll put all that under a pavilion. So part of what's led to the hardscape business rise in society is that we can customize this stuff so much that it's like I said before, it's part of these customers' houses, it's part of these people's houses. And it's like if you're going to remodel your kitchen, you're going to remodel it, you're going to get the right color, you're going to do this backsplash. It's the same thing with hardscape. You can pick out, what your pavers are. Do you want the blue grande slabs on a 45 degree, which is one of my personal favorites, and a real clean look. And guess what? We can add this fire pit with a and it can have an automatic start, or you can have natural gas or wood. It's in a way, it's such a hard question because there are so many options for people now. It's not just Rex and square pavers.
I'm going to be jumping around a lot now because
go ahead.
You've brought up so many questions into my head, but getting into talking about where your leads are coming from through the nursery, through word of mouth. Since you have that nursery, it's kind of a different game for you, but what are you spending your marketing dollars on? Are you investing in getting people into that nursery as a funnel to get into that design build? Or are you still marketing separately the design build, the nursery? Or do you even need to kind of market at all at this point?
I will tell you that our best leads, the ones that are, we're not up against much competition, are word of mouth. Those are the easiest ones because it's real simple. Do a good job for somebody. That person's going to tell their friend, their boss, whoever, how good of a job you did. And then they're going to call you. And most of the time, they're not getting other quotes. They're saying, hey, my boss, you did a good job for my boss. I love his patio. I want you to do it. I want you, can you give me a quote? And those are the best because you don't pay for those. Those are, and we get dozens and dozens of those every year, and they are it's hard to mess those up. You know what I'm saying? They're like word of mouth. If you do a good job for somebody, that's all you should need. All right. Now we do spend some Facebook dollars in marketing and getting people into the garden center. We do still do some stuff with design build and groundskeeping to get on to maintain a presence. But I will tell you that our word of mouth is like a lot of the projects I post are from mostly word of mouth. A lot of those big projects are word of mouth.
And with those word of mouth projects, when it comes to the design, are you kind of given a little bit more freedom in terms of design, or do most people kind of come to you and know what they want? What do you see kind of in the industry and where you guys are situated in the market?
I might go off on a tangent here, but the hard, like when you do that, the hardest thing is trying to figure out what kind of budget do you have, because that determines a lot of how creative I can get. And so I always try to, and it's hard because people don't know what things cost. And that's the biggest question that I get, and probably a lot of other guys in my line of work get, is I'll ask, all right, so what's your budget? And the number one response is, well, I don't know what things cost. And the best response that I have for that is I start saying, all right, so what if this patio and outdoor kitchen, what if it cost $80,000? How does that sound in your head? And once I can get them to understand and feel, they got to feel it, understand and feel what things cost, then you've opened the gate a little bit, because we can always usually get people to spend more than their budget, and because it's hard to match a budget exactly, and you'll have extras you want to add and things like that. So that's one way of how we figure out what the budget is. And that tells you how creative you can be. If someone, their max budget, you find out is 10 grand. I mean, there's not much you're going to be able to do for 10 grand. So, you can, and this is a problem, and I'll admit we're not perfect, but this is a problem that we've had, and I'm sure other designers have had, is I've said this before to a lot of my guys, is be careful that the art doesn't outpace the budget. The art doesn't outpace the budget. We've done that before. We've blown estimates because we didn't think about the budget, and we made this fancy design, really cool design, but it was so much money that the people couldn't afford it, or didn't want to afford it, and that's something that we've worked really hard on now is don't let the art outpace the budget. So we try to get budgets the best we can. And once you have that budget though, that's going to give you the freedom of how creative you can get. And I've had people say, you know, 200K, 300K, and those are great budgets to have, and I've had people tell me, hey, I got 15K, and that's great too. I mean, we don't discriminate on any of that. We want your business. So we'll find a way to make it work.
So where you are in your business right now, if a customer, I guess the easiest way to put this is, what is your ideal customer? What is their budget range? What kind of projects are they looking at getting done? Do you have an ideal customer in that sense, that if you see one of those come in, that's one you definitely want to get?
You're asking some killer questions. Those are some good. I got to take my jacket off now. Hot in here. Ideal customer, man. I haven't talked about that in a while. I think everyone's ideal customer, like if you're in business, your ideal customer is someone who has no budget. Mm-hmm. So and that just says yes to everything, and you're not going to get that. I would say a lot of my best customers are ones I became friends with, that they understand the hard work that we put into a job, mm-hmm. and the stress that we take home from a job. That's just a tough thing. Everyone wants the ideal customer, and it's you've got to work hard. You've got to work hard for that customer. I would say that if I had to just throw out some figures, our ideal customer is probably a 30 to 50K job, and with a little bit of landscape in there too, a little bit of patio, a little bit of landscape. You're not deployed for months. You can make it a week or 2-week job and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
If you're talking about parameters, but like that, but I would say ideal customer are the ones where I've done a killer job. I go back, take pictures. They're so happy with it. They're telling all their friends and family about it. They introduce you. They send you a text of like, hey, call this guy. Those are the ideal customers. Mm-hmm. Ideal parameters are what, kind of what I just said, a little bit of things that we like. Everyone, and this is a different tangent, and I don't know if I'm going too far on it, but like everyone wants that huge job. They see the jobs on Instagram and they're like, man, when I get my heart's business, I want to do this 6-figure job. And you got to be careful with those, because, you can lose a lot of money on a big job too. Mm-hmm. On a hardscape job, it's not all roses. And I will tell you, like when we do an $8,000 job, we'll knock that dude out in one day. And that might not be hardscape. It might be more landscape, but those are great money makers.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of small landscapes and things like that too still. So our portfolio is kind of balanced with, several big jobs and several jobs that we can squeeze in between these big ones, that we can go knock it out one or 2 days, send an invoice, everyone's happy, and move on to the next one. So I don't know, and stop me if I'm getting off on a tangent, but those are jobs that I like too. I post a lot of cool jobs. I like big jobs that we do, but what I don't post is some of these smaller jobs, and it's more for the fact that I just don't have time to get out there to every job and take a picture. But we do a lot of really cool small jobs that make great money and that are very profitable.
Yeah. And that's the same thing in my business. That's why I ask, because, I have those small jobs that they don't take up a lot of time and they're very profitable. So that's kind of, your answers kind of led me to a bunch of different questions that kind of got me off topic where we were going with this. But we talked about the customer coming into the nursery and the word of mouth leads. So my next question to you is, when a customer contacts you, wherever it may come from, what do you do from there? Do you get them on the phone, or can you contact through email? And how do you pre-qualify that customer?
What we'll do is, let's say there's a couple different ways, but clients can email me. They email, they get the general email, and they email the staff, and we try to push them in the same funnel. And I'm probably the worst at it. I'm the owners are always the most, pain in the butt guys, because sometimes we skip the processes that we make, and it gets the staff, I'm breaking the rules, but what we try to do is we try to push them into one of the coordinators. So we have two girls. Actually, we have four. Sorry, we have four staff members that are landscape coordinators, and the coordinator's job is to help coordinate everything with the client from beginning to end. And so I'll kick over if I get an email from a client that wants done. It starts with, I'll kick it over to Annie, and then she'll set up the appointment. She'll kind of ask some basic questions like, what are you looking for? Do you have an idea of a budget? Do you have a time frame? Those are very important questions that we try to at least have some kind of an answer to right off the beginning. And then she'll set up with an appointment, and we'll do an initial design appointment, basically, where we just go out and we have a checklist of things to look at. We'll meet with the client. We'll, look them in the eyes, do a handshake, if not now, of course, but, just to get to know them. And, that's where we'll try to figure out what the design is going to take, what design will cost. And at that point is when, they decide to move forward with the design process. If they like, if we get along on the first initial appointment, and, once from there, then we'll go on to more of the design process of, measuring and tell them what the design fee is and all the estimating side of it.
That initial consultation, are you charging for that?
The initial consultation, we've been back and forth on that. As of right now, we are not charging for it. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, it got really busy there for a while back in August. I was getting so many calls from all kinds of pool companies that we were starting to charge for a consultation fee then, because there was just too many appointments. But right now, as far as company policy, we don't charge for that initial appointment. We do charge after that, depending on the scope of the work. That determines design fee.
When it comes to choosing product, when it comes to presenting a design to the customer, do you bring them into the nursery? Do you guys use that space to kind of show off, this is what a product looks like when it's in the ground, when it's installed, and present them to the design at the nursery? Or how do you go about that?
Absolutely. Things are different now, of course. Before COVID, yeah, we were bringing people in. We would show them how things were built, walk around, show them plants. Yeah, absolutely. That's because basically you can show them almost everything you want to do right there, and they can see the actual product, actual plant. This is the color we want to use. This is the light we want to use. So yes, with COVID right now, of course, we're not bringing as many people in, and we're doing a lot of that virtual email and all that the best we can, dropping samples off. But yeah, to answer your question, absolutely. They come in, and that's a great way to sell a product, is if you have it all there laid out.
So, and I'm going to go off on a side tangent here. And the way I see a nursery is it really sets you up as almost an authority in the space, being that you have an area that you can show off the products and show off the installation, bring customers to, have a space to present designs. Like this really sets you apart from the competition. But not only that, I'm sure some people have yards that they pay rent for, that they can store their equipment and whatever it may be. But to have a space that can do that, but also generate some revenue, I see that nursery kind of business model as a positive. Is this how you kind of see your space, or do you even use your space to store your equipment? Do you have another space for that?
Yeah, no, we have we have 3 locations. Union City, Indiana, which is where I'm originally from, Muncie, Indiana, which is, we call that corporate headquarters, and the Fishers, Indiana location. All 3 of those spots have a small garden center. Muncie and Fishers, have the larger garden center. But those, when you talk about like the business as far as bringing leads in, it's and how it gives you the presence, I think is the word you used. it's total street cred is what it gives you. It gives you have tons of street cred. And what's nice is when they walk into the store, they can it backs it up.
Yeah.
And then as far as storing equipment, we can get onto a whole huge side engine here. You might have to have like some other podcasts with me on some of this stuff, but I'm a big believer of having everything on site for the crew the morning of, staged and ready. So at my Muncie location, for example, it's got a garden center, but it's got a stone yard. It's got a barn that just holds topsoil. I've got several barns with tools and skid steers, and I got a mechanic. So it's, the key is being ready for the crew every day the best we can, because it makes their day better. They're gonna produce for you more. They're gonna if they can have a good day and be organized in the morning. So going back to your original question, yes, there's a stockyard here in Muncie. We are ready to go. The Smith job has got its pallets of skids already there. The guys have their truck. They've got their tools. They get everything here and they head to the job site. The goal is to get them out of here in 30 to 40 minutes.
That's incredible. And I definitely see, that space really giving you that credibility and really setting you apart from your competition, especially in that design build space, because it really sets the authority for that space, being able to bring your customer to that and to kind of show it off in a sense. Now, going back to the design, meeting with the customer, what kind of questions are you asking in order to know what they want in that space, what they want to see in that space, so for that design what's going to go into it?
Some customers know what they want and you don't have to ask any questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then some customers they don't know what they want. All they know is they want something awesome. So then we really break it down, and like I'll ask, I'm like, all right, well, where do you spend the most time out, in your home? What's the inside of your house look like? Are you contemporary? Are you modern? What's your style? Like I try, I do everything I can to kind of figure out, all right, what's their existing style first, and then you start asking, all right, well, do you entertain a lot? Oh yeah. Dan, I've got a huge family. We're over here every Sunday for football. All right, well, that's going to tell me a lot about how much square footage I need to make, or maybe they're wanting a pool. Maybe, that's, there are tons of questions to ask, but we start off with, how you want to use your space, your style, what's the inside of your house look like? What do you envision in your, in your mind when you look out here? What do you see? From there, once we get them to open up, we can really figure out what they want.
How do you know what kind of products you're going to put in there, in terms of format, size, texture, color? What do you base that off of? Having already visited your nursery, do they kind of have a sense of what direction they want to take it? Or is this kind of something that you propose to them and then they kind of say yes, no, maybe?
I would say, so the first initial appointment, most clients have got a few pictures on Instagram they printed off or they want to show me. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we really like this style. Like I will tell you, I've had this happen a ton, where someone will have a picture of a Techo Block patio because they follow him, because, Techo Block has a ton of Instagram followers.
Yeah.
All right. And I will have a client that'll say, hey, can you do this? And it'll be a really clean contemporary picture of like blue grande slabs or something. And, that when they do that, they already kind of know what they want. And that's in today's age with Instagram and with everyone on social media and with companies doing a good job promoting their product on social media. It's not hard to figure out what people want. It's a lot easier. I would say rarely do we get somewhere where someone has no idea what they want. People are very informed now. They are on social media. They know. So we get a little bit of a head start most of the time from the client. And we sell a lot of Techo Block. I think they do a good job. It's easy to sell. They market themselves to the client for you. And so that's the ease of selling that product. And they've got a lot of choices of, contemporary, or do you want rustic? And I think the color and the texture and all that, that's pieces that we attack later. Our first job is to get the concept down and to get the space down. But a lot of that choice in texture and color, a couple factors come into that. One is budget. Yeah, whenever you start adding a lot of different textures and colors, the project gets more expensive. It takes more man hours. That's always something to consider. Also, do they want the rustic slabs? Do they want a clean, smooth look of something contemporary? So there's a lot of questions that the homeowner has to answer, that we kind of try to figure out before we really get the design done of those textures.
Coming down to it, you've presented the design to the customer is going ahead with it. In terms of payment plans with your customer, what does that look like in your business, especially on those larger scale projects that you guys get into?
So let's back up just a little bit. What we will do is we charge for the design. Okay. That's non-refundable. Okay. We don't, like there's some guys that will give credit back for that, and that's okay, but we just don't do that. So you pay for the design, you own the design. All right. And then once we presented the design, if you choose to move forward, then it's our payment plan it's half down. And then what we'll do is we will stage some payments throughout that. And when we get to the end, we'll just do the balance, and the balances, there's usually like, 15 or 20% left, I would say. So the goal is not to, as a company, as a hardscaper, not to have a huge balance at the end, in case something would go wrong, or God forbid something bad happens and you can't get your money. You want to, as you complete phases of the project, help, you need to make sure you collect some money going along the way too. So in case something happens, you don't have a huge sum of money hanging out there that you can't collect.
I asked this question after I asked about the payments, because typically it has to do with payments. But do you have a horror story in terms of being in business, whether that's on the retail side of things with the nursery, or with the design build side of things, whether that's payments or installation? Do you have a horror story that you'd want to share with our audience? And I only ask because it does help in terms of letting these guys know what can happen, and to kind of prepare them for it, or to be able to kind of avoid those situations.
Well, Mike, we've been in business since 1977, and yes, do we have horror stories? Yes, absolutely. And that's part of becoming a strong business. And this is a tangent, so I apologize, but that's one of the things I can say is we've made a ton of mistakes. The good news is that we've learned from those all along the way. And that's something that I tell my staff here, and I tell guys that, when they message me on social media and they'll ask, how'd you do this? How'd you do this? And my newer staff, I want them to make mistakes and learn. I mean, a mistake is the best form of teaching you can do. So that was my little tangent on mistakes, and horror stories. Yes, we've had them. I'll tell you a couple, some interesting ones. So one is, before, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, before we really got into having strict down payments, because now we do DocuSign. It's legit. It's you gotta put a down payment before we move forward with anything. Well, before that, we were a little more loose with that, and we would do a job with very little down, and not think too much about the process of that, because no one had really burned us really bad before. And so we got to doing this job, and we did it, and we were trying to collect payment, and I couldn't get them to respond. Tried everything, and I got to the point where I didn't know what to do. I mean, she finally answered, and she said, "Oh, we're going to come right in and pay you." And she never showed up. So I called my attorney and I said, can I do a landscape repo? And we did. He said, yes. We went in there on a Saturday morning, made a bunch of noise, and we repoed every plant that we could.
Mm-hmm.
And we made a bunch of noise and on purpose. And, you know, come to find out that they actually were on some FBI list of, they had scammed Amazon for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they just up and left.
Wow.
So they weren't even there anymore. So I couldn't even take them to court.
Wow.
So, you know, that's what caused us to put the DocuSign in place and to get, you know, as much down and signatures but, you know, as much as possible. But, you know, it's not foolproof. I mean, if someone, you know, is a bad person, I mean, there's ways of them of still not paying you, but,
Mm-hmm.
but that's one. I don't know if that was a good one or not. But another one, and I feel bad for him, but the guy got in we were doing work, pretty big job. The guy got in a lawsuit that was unrelated to us, and he got sued, and I think he probably lost a lot of money and couldn't pay us, and he ended up, you know, filing for bankruptcy protection. So, you know, when that happens, you're out of luck there too. So, and that was one even with our DocuSigns and our contract. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you can get on I forget what my controller did, but, you know, I think we were on like a list, you know, with the bank, and it was kind of first come, first serve on that way of who had the biggest, who he owed the most to. And we were one of the smaller ones. So those are things you got to write off, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's one. I mean, you can do everything right, and still, if there's bad misfortune on your client side, that's one of the things I say, that's a risk of being a contractor. Those are some of the risks that we take. And you know, those are horror stories. That doesn't happen a lot, but that's one. Another one I have is, it's not really about money. It's more about, you know, we asked for a plot plan, like a stamped plot plan, you know, so we know where house lines are and the property line is, like, for sure.
Gotcha.
And I built this beautiful project. It was a pickleball court. It was beautiful. And come to find out, the plot plan was wrong. And so that our plot plan was on someone else, our pickleball court was on someone else's property.
Jeez.
And it was a big deal to get it back there. There was no access. It was a disaster.
Oh, man.
It was a disaster. And when you look at it, the house was moved. Okay, so they built the house, and they moved the location of the house, but didn't change the plot plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this beautiful project. Part of it was in someone else's property, and I had to move it.
Wow.
And you know, I could have gotten a big lawsuit probably with the client and fought my way through, and maybe I would have won, maybe I wouldn't have, but it just wasn't worth it, because it was in a really nice neighborhood, and I wanted to leave on top and not leave in a battle. So we agreed on some terms. I fixed it, and we moved on, and we learned our lesson. You know, that was an expensive one.
Yeah, it seems like with these scenarios, you just kind of got to roll with them, right? Like there's no setting yourself up to kind of avoid these things. These things may happen from time to time, but really, is there any other way than to just kind of roll with them and kind of bite the bullet?
I think if you're in this business, I think you need to there's things that you can do to help these. You know, it's like one is like, you know, you have a good contract, you know, you have stipulations, like we now, in the DocuSign we send out, we now have our contract's really good too, by the way, but we now have a little blurb in there that says that you as a homeowner are verifying that, you know, we're going to go off the plot plan you give us. That's in the contract now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of the learning lesson, like from the pickleball court.
Right.
I didn't have that in my contract at that point, but now I do. And so, but yeah, you're right. Like, you can prepare all you want, but be prepared for anything. Like, things will happen out of your control, and you've got to chuck it up. You got to toss it up as a learning lesson. A lot of times we got tons of learning lessons. Every day or every year I'm going to make a mistake somewhere. I mean, it's going to happen.
And I like your mindset around it, where at the beginning, before we got into these few stories, you said, you know what, they're learning lessons. They're not really necessarily failures or anything like that. We take them, we learn from them, we move on.
Yeah. And that's as an owner, I will tell you that's this is kind of me being vulnerable on a couple of things, that as an owner and managing this crew over here, that's something I need to do better about is when we make these mistakes, I got to remind myself, like, because it's easy for me to get a little heated, because I'm like, oh man, we just lost a bunch of money on that one. We could have avoided that. And then I got to step back and say, all right, this was not done on purpose. This is what happened. How did we learn from it? And so that's and it's tough to do. It's especially if you're new in the business, and those are going to sting the most when you're new.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And especially when you're just first starting out, one of those can really, really set you back and maybe put you out of business for sure.
That's why I say, when some of these guys, contact me, they're like, man, we want to do these big projects. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Slow down, start small, get good at doing those small ones. And then you work your way up. Because you're going to make mistakes all the way up. Make them on these little ones. You make a mistake on a big one, like what I did with that pickleball court, and you're 30-40K down the road. You're like, holy cow, what did I do? So, that would be some of my advice is you've got to start small.
Getting into the installation side of things, Dan, do you have any product, tools, equipment, anything like that your business lives by that you would want to kind of mention here, in terms of, this is something that we truly believe in the business and we implement it into our installations?
Okay. Yeah, man, we could do another show just on this. I'll tell you, on the tool side of it, we have 3 of them now. No, actually we have 4. The Vermeer mini skids, the CTX 100, and we just got a CTX 160. Those machines are awesome. I have crews that fight over them. It runs an auger, it runs a Harley bucket forks. You, as a company, you need to look at those machines. Anyone out there needs to look at those machines. I have guys that fight over them because we don't have enough for every crew. That would be one piece I would say. Look at that machine exactly, or something like it. Those mini skid steers are getting, the technology's better. They can lift a lot. They're very, very versatile. So that's one I would say. I think like Richard Carroll. I think he has a ditch witch one, which is a good one too. But that's a great way to get a skid steer, in a backyard. If you got a tight space. So one, mini skid steers, we use the heck out of them every day. They go out every day. I would say another tool that I have bought more of, and that I need to buy some more of, is PaveTech. I think it's called I might have to Google it and send you a link on it. I think it's called the Mighty Mite. I don't know if that's correct, but vacuum lifting technology. Those, we do a lot of slabs. We do a lot of Blue Grande slabs, which that's what I would say on the product side is large format pavers they look great. They are in. What a great way to do a patio is on them, just a simple large format patio. But they're like 120 pounds, 130 pounds, some of them. And I buy this equipment because there isn't a lot of hardscape guys out looking for jobs, right? So the guys that I have, I want to take care of them and get them. I'll buy them any equipment they need if it makes their job easier and they can work longer. Like Oscar, one of my best foremen here. He's, there's not a bunch of Oscars walking around looking for a job. So I gotta take care of these guys. And buying equipment is one way I can do that. If I can make their job easier, I'm going to do that. And that's some of the biggest things is we're buying tools, to make the job easier. We've got an IQ saw. I'm still trying to get them to use that more often. We use a lot of GeoGrid. We haven't got much into the synthetic base. I know Richard Carroll likes that. I really need to explore that option a little bit more.
I like that you mentioned with that, especially that vacuum technology, it's going to save your crews. It's going to help employee retention because they're going to see you using it and want to be there and want to stay there, as opposed to jump ship to another company that doesn't have that technology that they're utilizing.
Well, yeah, I think if you had a 2,000 square foot patio and it's all Blue Grande slabs, those are heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are heavy. So they can lay at patio extremely quickly with the vacuum technology. They're not pinching their fingers, they're not hurting their back. So it's great.
Now, Dan, as we round out this interview here, I've got two more questions for you. One being, do you have any mentors in your life that have really helped you along the way with this business in this industry, or people that you look to for inspiration, whether that's online, offline, anybody here that you'd want to give a shout out?
I will tell you, I won't name them, but there are several clients that have really helped me out as far as being a mentor and just giving me good advice. All right. I'll start off with that. I have some great clients that want us to succeed and give great advice. And then there's other guys, like guys like Andy Mulder, Richard Carroll, and a lot of the guys on Instagram. There's such great advice just from watching their Instagram stories sometimes. One guy I went to a lot of his he puts on a pretty good presentation is Marty Grunder. And I've been to his, I've done a couple of his grow events. I have he does a deal where you go to his office. And that's where I got a lot of my ideas, honestly, on how we run the office here. So I think Marty Grunder does a great job. He's one I definitely look up to. Jack Kelly on at Imagine. His designs are just there's something that we look up to. Matt Heiner's another guy who he's got some killer designs. What he does, I think he's got a nice little shop too. But he does a great job too. So he's definitely another guy to look up to. Sean with Premier Outdoor, and he's got another one that has just got some great intricate designs with his deck builds. Just really good. I mean, I could go on and on and on guys especially from the community. I mean, there's just too many. And at night I'll kind of scroll through Instagram and be like, dang, that design's awesome. And I'll screenshot it. I got so many screenshots now. I don't even know like how to look through them all now. I forget about them sometimes. There's so many.
I know exactly what you mean. And my final question to you, Dan, I know we could go on for so much longer, but I appreciate the time that you've already given me here, and look forward to having you on in the future on the podcast. But my final question to you here is, if there's one thing, what is that one thing that you know now that you wish you knew from the very start of your business?
I tell you what, Mike, you got some killer questions. They're just killer. I would tell you the one thing that if I could go back and tell myself when I was first really getting into the business after college and learning how to sell, I would tell myself to slow down. And I know that sounds like cliche and that's just, really simple advice, but I was in such a hurry to become this huge business, and do big projects and let's get tons of locations. And I would tell myself to slow down, because you can grow too fast. You can make a lot of silly mistakes. You can lose a lot of money with quick decisions. And that's something I wish I could go back and say, all right, let's just slow down and think about this deal before we do this deal, or let's just think about it a little bit more. But slowing down would be my biggest thing. I'm loving what I do and all that, but there's a different kind of stress when you get to when you get to a larger business, and it's it's rewarding and tough at the same time. I don't get to work on the crew, and that's something that I really miss. I'm in an office, I'm designing, I'm selling, I got a team under me that sells, and they do a great job. But there's parts I miss about when I was on the crew. So I would say, like, if I'm giving advice, if I was giving advice to myself, I would say, man, just slow down a little bit and let's think through every decision very, very carefully.
Excellent advice. And Dan, where can our audience learn more about everything that you've got going over there?
We're working on a new website right now, wassonnursery.com. It's not quite done yet. We've got handles on at Wasson Nursery at Instagram and Facebook. And then I'm at the Dan Wasson on Instagram. That's where I do most of my messing around on social media.